out there that's been talked about before. I don't see us doing, a Healthy Utah approach this year, and so I don't know that there's a need for that ongoing revenue stream that's been talked about. A more significant issue is what do we do to prevent misuse of e-cigarettes, and particularly with our young people. And so that's where we probably ought to concentrate, because I am concerned about that and the health ramifications of e-cigarette use. It's been, hey, listen, I admit, it's been a quiet session. There's not a whole lot of controversy out there, is there? You're trying to generate, I mean, you're doing your best. I appreciate the fact, you roll up your sleeves, you're coming here to the table and say, what can we do to generate some headlines? Let's generate some controversy. I appreciate the fact you're trying.
Jump right in, Governor.
Yeah.
Controversy, if you like. Let me ask you about an attempt to undo SB 54 that failed in the House today. You've talked about this before, but should lawmakers be looking to make changes to that, or even come up with a way to undo the intent of SB 54, or should it just play out in the courts in your mind?
Well, I think it should play out in the courts. I think that's really the arena where this is going to and should be. We have, I think, honest differences of opinion on what the law does and the ramifications of the law. So let's let the courts make that decision, as opposed to the arguing back and forth, I'm right, you're wrong, you're right, I'm wrong, which, it just becomes almost childish. Let's decide to go to court and let the courts resolve the issue. So I think that's the proper arena. I know there's concerns out there. Even I myself have concerns about Senate Bill 54 from the standpoint of what it's done, particularly to the Republican Party. We have Republicans fighting Republicans, which I find disappointing. And the motivation for SB 54 was, in fact, to protect the caucus convention system, believing, as the polls showed at the time, that if this was put on the ballot by the Count My Vote folks, that it would have passed, and it would have passed overwhelmingly. Now, people could argue, well, we would have argued against it, and we would have turned the tide, and I guess who knows, that's just speculation. But the concern at the time was, this looks like it's going to go to the public, and we'll have just general primary elections. And for a lot of reasons, the Republican Party in particular didn't think that was a good thing. We're kind of ceding the elections to the rich and the famous through just a general election, as opposed to a caucus convention where a guy like me, just kind of an average guy with not a lot of money and not a whole lot of name ID, was able to compete with the rich and famous. And so I understand that, and that's why I've supported the caucus convention system. The infighting is not helpful, and I think Republicans ought not to say to those who supported Senate Bill 54 that they somehow were not as dedicated a Republican as others who were opposed to it, because I think they had good intentions and their motivation was correct. So rather than fight, let's stop the fighting, let's go to court, let the courts tell us what the law is. If we don't like the decisions that come out of the court, then we can work together to come up with a better law or something that works better. But right now, the court should be the one that decides the outcomes of the Senate Bill 54.
Are you confident they'll rule in time, though, for candidates? I mean, you're a candidate, your campaign's already underway, you've chosen a dual path. Others have not made that decision yet.
Well, my campaign will really kind of gear up when we get through the legislative session, but we're doing what I think is the prudent thing, and that's based on what the Attorney General has made an initial determination with the Elections Office here, and that is that the only way you can ensure that you're going to have access to the primary ballot is if you do both paths. And so, we ought to be prudent. Again, you run elections with the intent of winning. And so the prudent path based on the Attorney General is to do caucus and convention as well as do the signature route. There's a lot of lawsuits swirling around out there, and who knows what the outcome of that's going to be. But I think, be prudent, and I'm going to be safe rather than sorry.
Senator Brambles having a bill drafted that would require any abortion performed after, I think, 20 weeks, is that what it was? To have anesthesia performed on the fetus, the fetal pain bill, I guess, is what it's been referred to as. Is that something you'd be supportive of? I know you always say you have to see the bill first, but conceptually and
Well, if you already know my answer, Robert, I have to see the bill first.
I was trying to take that part out of it.
You know, abortion is a very emotional issue. And those who are opposed to it are adamantly opposed to it. Those who think it's okay to do for whatever reason, are adamantly supportive of it. And so rather than get into the abortion debate, I guess the question is, if we're going to have abortion, what is the most humane way to do it? And I don't know what the data and science shows as far as pain for a fetus. But certainly, if there's in fact pain registered, I guess the humane thing would be to make it as painless as possible. So conceptually, I don't have a problem with that. I just don't know whether they feel pain at that stage. What I do know is this, and that is we have EMTs that are out there working their streets all the time and find themselves in emergency situations. And one of the first things that they do when they come upon an emergency situation and somebody's unconscious is they check for a heartbeat. Clear the airways, check for a heartbeat. Why do you check for a heartbeat? Because that determines whether they're alive or not. And it helps them with their treatment, what they should do going forward. Fetuses, have a heartbeat after about 5 weeks. And, the idea of just being callous about it should cause all of humanity concern. So whether you believe that's a child or just a child in development or a piece of tissue, I guess that depends on where you come down on the abortion debate. But if we have a law in the books that allows for abortion, we ought to make it as humane as possible. If they feel pain, I have no problem with Senator Bramwell's wanting to eliminate that discomfort.
Time for one more question if you got one.
Maybe you can ask one, John. That's true.
Have you seen any bills coming out that you really don't like, that look like they're gonna be, voidable, or?
It's always the surprise bill that you don't know about that's the concern. And so I don't know what's gonna come up here in the next 3 weeks, but there might be some surprise protected bill that would kind of blindside us or throw us a curve. But I think the legislature is doing a good job of sorting through the bills and being methodical about them, having an appropriate vetting of the issues and doing the committee hearings. I think they're prioritizing what I see from the budget. I think pretty well following the guidelines we had, so I think we're going to be pretty much together on the budget. And so, again, I think maybe it's in comparison to last year because we had such a tumultuous time with Healthy Utah. They kind of sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Maybe because of that, it seems a little bit calmer session. And we seem to be getting along well. We're helping, as we track bills, to work with the respective legislators to say, the governor's got a concern here. If you could kind of eliminate that or modify it, then we don't have a problem. And everybody's been willing to kind of work with us on those things so that the legislation that seems to be working its way through the session is bills that we can support. So I think it's going to be a productive session. May not be quite as wild and woolly as last year, but that's probably okay.
One last quick question, Governor, are you ready yet to endorse the presidential race?
Boy, I've been invited a number of times on that. And a couple of my guys that I wanted to support, I'm a big proponent of governors, because governors actually had to bring people together and get things done. The executive branch experience from a state is, I think, invaluable. And America typically has elected governors more than anybody else. So I'm concerned about lack of experience there. And but Governor Christie and Scott Walker, my two good friends, are out. John Kasich is still in. Jeb Bush is still in.
Oh, he's out.
Yeah, well, we've had some others, but we started with a lot. The year of the governors turned out to not be the year of the governors. But, let's not count out Kasich and Governor Bush yet. And there's a lot to like. A lot of our congressional delegation and others have supported Marco Rubio, who I think is a very talented guy. He's very, very smart, young, energetic. He seems to be having a resurgence here after his meltdown in New Hampshire. Ted Cruz has got a lot of support here. My concern with him is, again, a little bit of lack of time and grade in the legislature, but a smart guy, and very consistent, I think, on his conservative principles. So he has a lot of appeal. The wild card on the Republican side is Donald Trump. And, there is no explanation for the Trump phenomenon that I can see. It seems like he can say anything that comes to his mind with no filter, and where most politicians would have said it and dropped immediately in the polls or be out of contention, his poll numbers go up. So if anybody can explain that to me why, I'd like to listen and learn. So I met with his son, Donald Trump Jr., here last Saturday. He was in town, and he and his wife, Vanessa, wonderful people. Oh my goodness. They just very family oriented. They have 5 children, all under 8. They don't drink or smoke that I know of. They were talking about very family value oriented. Somebody said, "Hey, you'd fit right in with the Utah culture," and they said we do fit in with the Utah culture. So I feel better about Donald Trump Sr. after having met Donald Trump Jr. On the Democrat side, as you could probably appreciate, as a partisan Republican, I'm very concerned about if the Democrats ought to be concerned. Is that the best we can do on the Democrat side? And for all the criticism we have on the Republican side, my gosh, we have an avowed socialist that's neck and neck. An avowed socialist, not a Democrat, a socialist that's neck and neck with Hillary Clinton. And maybe that's a reflection of where the country's going. If that's the case, then we need to push the reset button as an American country.
So no endorsement?
No, not today. Maybe you, Ben, but if you throw your hat. We're gonna have a brokered convention, so, just prepare yourself. On the Republican side, I think I don't know if it's gonna happen. I think it's long odds, but certainly if nobody gets any more market share and they stay the same, that you could actually go into a convention that there'd have to be some kind of brokered convention to come up with somebody that we could get behind. And so I hold out hope for Mitt Romney. There's your headline. Herbert is still hoping for Mitt Romney. Yeah, finally, I got you something you can go with there. All right? All right. Thank you very much. Halfway there. Halfway to the promised land.
Take care, Governor.